Hello, everybody. This is Greg Proops, the specky one from Whose Line Is It Anyway, and the smartest man in the world, Proopcast, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with Jon and Pete.
You are, and we are here indeed with Greg Proops in the Hilliard guest suite. Hilliard will be joining us as well, our frequent guest from the Screenwriters Rant Room. But hey, Greg. God damn, man.
Hey, Jon.
What an honor it is to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
We're next to a construction site here. In case you hear any errant noise, it isn't the beating of our hearts.
It is not the beating
Although
of our
our hearts are beating at a regular pace.
Yes.
You know what? I just want to kick into a different gear than we're typically in. And absolutely, if you're not already listening to the smartest man in the world, go listen to the smartest man in the world. You guys just did your 300th episode, huh?
Yeah, we did. It came so quickly. We started in 2010, and the cats who do Jimmy Pardo's Never Not Funny and Doug Benson's I Love Movies, Doug Loves Movies, asked me to do it. And I was like, well, who'll listen? What, like, who cares? And Matt said something to me, which Matt Belknap said, that I don't know if it's true, but I've always tried to respect it. He said, people like content.
Yeah.
They respond to content. And I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've been in show business enough to understand that people like schlock. So I've tried to have some content on the show, and I think they have. The fact that we're on after 300 episodes and winner of no awards, and, we're the longest-running award-seeking podcast in my and we haven't made a cable show out of it yet, which I'm pretty proud of.
That's hilarious. I need some pen and a paper. We're going to give an award out today.
Yeah, right. We'll make a certificate.
I would appreciate the Hill Dog
You guys
Award.
do one a week or two?
I do one a week, yeah. So we did one live at Bar Lubitsch last week, or Sunday, 2 days ago, and then we're going to do one at my crib at the Porpoise of Fruititude, or the Fortress of Proopitude.
I like the Porpoise of Fruititude.
We call it both all the time because I get everything wrong this week because I don't have a live date. But we try to do it live generally. And last year we did it in London, Glasgow, Paris, Antwerp, Stockholm, Montreal. We try to get around with it. So
Yeah. And we were wondering, because you've been doing this so long and you're so good at improvisation, is that almost kind of like a necessity for you just to get on there and get some of that stuff out? Or are you working on things? I mean, it just seems like that you have to do it.
I do have to do it. I want to do it more than anything else. My wife has been instrumental in the whole thing because after I did the first one and I had no idea what I was going to do, I just kind of talked. She's like, no, this is what you need to do. And then it all evolved after that, sort of organically. I didn't think of any of the gags or the running ideas that are now part of the show that the listeners, Kittens McTavish is our mascot. That was a complete fluke. We found a cardboard cat at a store in London. The elusive, ephemeral, emotional support Muntjac was something I improvised one night, and now people send me pictures of Muntjacs and drawings. I have thousands of kittens at home. Satchel Paige is just a hero of mine. I just started talking about him on the show. That's become an enormous thing in the show. So I didn't think of any of these things beforehand because I didn't think of anything. I came in unprepared and just got high. But they've all evolved out of, for a long time it was baseball teams. It was baseball teams because I used to talk to the crowd and get people up, and someone got up one night and went, who's your all-time Roman Emperor baseball team? So I went, well, Caligula behind the plate because he can handle balls, and on and on and on. And so for a long time it was baseball teams. So we've got the Kings of England team.
Who's your third baseman, Roman? Is it Cicero because he had good hands?
No, well, Cicero wasn't an emperor, so but I would make Cicero the legal counsel for the team.
Okay,
I
could talk.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Very eloquent. So eloquent that when they finally got to him, Mark Antony really hated him because he hated Mark Antony, and he didn't like Caesar much either, but he kept quiet. The conspirators wouldn't include Cicero in the group, right? Or they called themselves the Liberators, who assassinated Caesar. But Mark Antony, after Caesar was assassinated, ran him down and had his hands and tongue nailed to the door of the Senate.
Yeah.
Had him executed.
That's what pimps do.
It's a lot like now.
Yeah.
It was the Roman politics of then are a lot like now. It was,
Absolutely.
they gave out money to get elected to be consul or whatever, and so. Yeah, Cicero's an interesting person. Really loved his family. When Caesar kind of cheated on his wife all the time, and
He was a pimp. That's
Here's
why.
what you have to do when you have Greg Proops on your podcast. You have to cut in and say, Jesus Christ, Greg.
You have to raise your hand like it's...
So it doesn't
300
start about
episodes
Roman emperors for a year.
of The Smartest Man in the World is 300 episodes of Greg Proops with a microphone in front of him and no guest. Yeah. So
He's the Bob Uecker of podcasts.
That's right.
Does not
if
need
you're
anybody
afraid that he might go, you know what? One of the exercises that Pete and I go through when we do this, when we do our prep or when we're on our way to wherever we're going to capture a podcast, we go, hey, so what do you want to talk to whoever our guest's going to be about? And we just went, so what do you want to talk? Oh, we just got to figure out how to fucking corral Greg Proops. He's not going to have any problem going off. But here's what I really wanted to start off with was, you're from San Carlos, California.
I am.
We have Hilliard here. He's from Palo Alto.
That's right.
Pete and I are both from the Bay Area.
Where are you from?
Pete grew up in Benicia. I grew up in Vallejo.
Benicia, Vallejo.
Yeah. What was the last show you saw at the Circle Star Theater?
The last show, I don't know that I can remember chronologically the last show, but I saw Tower Power and Cheech and Chong there with my cousin Johnny.
Oh, yes.
And I
Probably there, buddy.
Yeah, I saw. I never saw Frank Sinatra. He
should have
played there
been.
a lot. Woody Allen played there too. Sinatra played there, and I wished I'd seen him. I don't know why I didn't. My dad and mom took me to see Ella Fitzgerald with Count Basie Orchestra.
Wow.
And I've talked about it on the podcast because Count Basie at one point he backed Ella, right? Like Count Basie came out and did a set, then Ella came out and did her set, and she was big in those days. And
Big as in weight.
Large.
her weight. Because
a large
I saw
person.
that might have been the last show I saw there. I saw Ella Fitzgerald in the '80s with my wife, and I took her to a Sunday matinee because I had a show that night. And we saw Ella Fitzgerald at a Sunday matinee, and she was 70 something. She didn't live very long. She only made it about 75.
Yeah.
And they put her up on stage. A big old guard came out with her and put her on a chair. And she sang the first number, right? And if you remember, the Circle Star Theater, to describe it to the listeners, was in the round, which is the worst way to see anything ever. I don't know why it was a thing, but it was.
Never a good seat in the house.
No, not one good seat.
Yeah.
So there was a star aisle that the star would come down at the beginning of the show. And then the stage would start, and it was so creaky and old that you could hear the stage start. It would go, and then the fucking stage would turn in a circle so that every once in a while you got to see the artist that you came to see, right? Cheech and Chong in the round was hilarious, right? Because they fantastically didn't have any set. They put 2 folding chairs out and did the first bit with, Chong hitchhiking and him picking him up. And he got any weed? And then he went into a litany with 70s. I got Meshmacon. I got Meshmacon.
Yeah.
I got Thai stick. I got red, right? Like all the weed we smoked then. But so we went to this matinee of Ella Fitzgerald, and so she does the first number, right? It ain't a dome in a thing if you ain't got that swing. Finishes and she goes, I'm not comfortable. And you realize that she's only sitting halfway on the chair, right? They put her on a high chair because she's old and can't really stand.
But it's a stool.
It's a stool. So she's her ass is half on the chair. And everyone, because it was a matinee, everyone was 100 that was at the show, right? Like, old ladies behind us, a fracas, right?
They only let you in there because they counted you and your wife together.
Yeah. The woman behind us stands up and goes, "Can't you see she's not comfortable?" And people start screaming. Old people start screaming. And my wife and I are like, what's happening, right?
She was doing her own version of like a wedding with Tony and Tina, like it's interactive theater.
It turned into like a Judas Priest concert. People were literally up in arms.
A matinee mutiny.
Up in arms. So the big security guard who'd held her hand and walked her on runs up on stage and picks her physically up and puts her back down on the chair. Put her ass square down on the chair.
Wow.
And he leaves the stage and she goes, that's better.
Wow.
And then did the rest of the show.
She needed to have her ass adjusted on a chair.
Bitch, help me move.
Her hip was bad,
And we love you, rest in peace, Ella Fitzgerald, but good gracious.
She had a lot of physical. So and then I mentioned this to my wife the other day. People think I'm 1,000. In 1966 or 7, I was 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
My dad took me to see Jimmy Durante at the Circle Star Theater. I saw Jimmy Durante perform live. He did a vaudeville show. That had a guy did it was Jackson, Clayton, and Durante. Jackson came out and he was the Irish tenor. That was first. Then Clayton came out in a tuxedo with a cane and did a fucking cakewalk. I'm not kidding. Which is a very old-fashioned form of like minstrel entertainment. Like he, did the thing.
Yeah.
And then Durante came out with a piano. Showgirls
Wow.
with headdresses. And he did stop the music, all that shit. And he did all of his songs one after the next. And my father, who bullshitted me my entire life, right? It was very difficult with my dad to tell what was true. Goes, I know the trombone player. And my mother and I are like, whatever. And he's like, no, I used to go to the track with him in New York. We used to go to, Aqueduct or whatever. So the intermission comes at the Jimmy Durante show. And by the way, this is the 60s. I'm in a suit and tie. I'm a child, right?
Right.
My mother's in we're wearing, we dressed up to go to the fucking Circle Star.
You were, yeah.
And
1-inch tie, by the way.
right. Right.
Fuck that big one.
Right, a little clippy tie. And here comes the band down the aisle at the break, right, at the intermission. And my dad goes, I'll prove to you that I know the trombone player. And he goes, hey, Jim or whatever the guy's name was. And the guy turns, and he hadn't seen my dad in probably 15, 20 years. And he goes, oh, hey, Steve. And we were like, you did know him. And he's like, I told you I knew him.
Told you.
Yeah.
It's just a good thing he didn't say, hey, Steve, you still got that 15 bucks?
I was going to say, you borrowed 50 from me in 1949.
Yeah.
You cheap pisha.
I'd have punched you in the mouth.
Yeah, I saw Pearl Bailey there with Louis Bellson's
Holy
orchestra.
shit.
Jesus
I
Christ.
saw Patty Page and the Mills Brothers. Wow. The Step Brothers, who were like the Nicholas Brothers, they were a tap dance act, and they were from vaudeville. And then they brought out their grandchildren. I also saw Cosby there. Shanana.
Well, you guys went every
Shana
week.
Na.
It was
It was
the
right
only,
there in
yeah,
San
it was
Carlos,
like, it was,
right? So
San Carlos is such a nothing little small place,
it's
but
tiny.
across the tracks was this, what would you call it, a theater,
Across the
cabaret?
track.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
It was a big old nightclub that held, well, I don't know, a couple thousand people.
Yeah, maybe 1,500.
Yeah,
2,000
1,500. It
people.
wasn't. And you sat in the goddamn round, and they had the worst snack bar in the world. It was Cokes and hot dogs. It was terrible. But they had
It was
everybody
like
there.
the old airport snack
Right,
bar.
well, right. Like, remember in the airport when there was no food?
Yeah, all you could get
Hot
there was a
dogs.
hot dog and a pretzel.
Right. Potato chips, and you're there to see Frank Sinatra, like. So, but my parents took me to see all those acts.
You
and at
got
the-
dressed up. You wore a suit.
Oh, yeah,
you
you
were
did.
6, and the only thing you could get was a hot dog.
Right. At the time, I remember.
At least you get to eat in the show.
That's true.
Yeah, thinking they were dragging me in, but now I'm really glad that they take me to see Ella Fitzgerald and Count Basie and Pearl Bailey, and I got to see all these acts.
you remember.
You got to see Pearl Bailey with the Louis Bellson Orchestra.
Louis Bellson was
What kid gets
so-
to say, among our contemporaries gets to say that?
Yeah, I know, right? And then I talk about this on the show, and of course the kids who listen to the podcast are like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "This was the '70s, God damn it!" They were all still alive. So Louis Bellson was awesome. He's a tremendous big band drummer. So, but right before James Brown
First
died,
drummer to play double bass. Just
right?
wanna throw
There
that
you
in
are. Boom. Right before.
Says the drummer.
When did James Brown die? 5-7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago.
About 5-7 years ago. We went to see him at the Hollywood Bowl. In the middle of the show, and James Brown show. I won't go into that because I won't let you guys talk. But this 2 bands on stage: the Soul Generals that had his kids in it, and then another band. They switched bands. It was really wild. In the middle of that show, ladies and gentlemen, Louis Bellson, and he must have been 80.
Holy smoke.
And they brought Louis Bellson out, and he just did a solo for 10 minutes in a suit and tie. He looked like a mafia, right? Like he had a gold tie and a black suit on and the cufflinks, and he came out and he just wham, bam, blah, 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 and just laid it down for like 10 minutes.
Laid it down.
And I said to my wife, I saw him in 1974. And I thought he was ancient then, you know.
Wow.
He was Pearl Bailey's band leader and husband at the time.
Yeah.
I saw Buddy Rich do that at Marriott's Great
God.
America.
Yeah.
Set up right there, like as you walked in, like once you got past the merry-go-round, like
Yeah.
he's up there, like way high, like where you didn't put anybody, and he's just banging on drums for an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cool.
Isn't it weird the acts that would play these amusement parks?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Great
Gotta
America.
Yeah, and not the
Seriously.
amphitheater part, but
Right.
the actual
Just
park.
outside.
Right, just in the park.
Yeah,
Buddy
like
Rich.
right by where like the triple play, that ride is off to the left, like right in the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah, up there just beating on shit. It's crazy.
Louis Bellson used to do this thing because he had 2 bass drums, and he would do this thing where he would show off what he was doing with his hands. He'd play some crazy rudiment on the snare drum, and then he would play it with his feet.
Yeah.
And he was just, he was a monster.
He really was. Is he alive? Can he be
no,
alive?
no, he
must
died,
have passed.
He died about 20 years ago.
No, he didn't, because I saw him with James Brown
No, how long ago was that?
Whenever, right before James Brown died.
It's about 7
Oh,
and
about
7.
We
7
saw
years
James
ago.
Brown in autumn, and he died Christmas that
God, I
year.
thought Louis Belson died before Buddy Rich.
No, I'm telling you, I freaked out because they brought Louis Belson on.
And he
I was
played.
Like, he's
gotta be 141.
Wow, he was in better shape than James Brown was at the time. James Brown was whipped thin at the end,
Yeah.
and he had been
Frail.
chunkier.
Yeah.
But he got sick in his teeth and whatnot, and he didn't dance a whole lot. And they only did, like, the first half was supposed to be standards, and he didn't know. They had sheet music on stage, and I was crying laughing. I'm like, if there's one person you know doesn't read sheet music, it's
Right.
James Brown. Right?
Yeah.
That's like giving Paul McCartney sheet music. He's going to look at it and go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I taught myself to play, man.
Louis Belson died in 2009.
So there you are. I don't know when
very
James
shortly
Brown
after
died.
you
Right,
saw him.
right after,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe. Yeah. And so they...
He probably said, "I've seen Greg." No.
Yeah.
Now I
see
can go.
Greg and die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that James Brown was supposed to sing standards because he was revisiting an album that was the theme of the night. That's why we went. We were like, I'm like, he made an album in the 70s where he sang standards. So he hammers through the standards, right?
I
Like,
wouldn't
he don't
wanna
know
see
them.
that.
He
I
hasn't
don't-
rehearsed them.
Yeah.
Willow, weep for me. And then in the middle, I feel good, right? Like he's just right in the middle, you know? So then they switched to the other
Hey,
band.
he knows where his bread's buttered.
Right? And they did Sex Machine for like 40 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Just one groove, man. And they did like 3 numbers. Maybe 3 or 4 numbers. And then he brought Tommy, the woman that he was with, that white woman he was with at the end
Yeah.
before he died with
Yeah.
the red hair. And he gave her a big intro and she came out and sang a number and everybody's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I think it was so he could go off and smoke.
Probably.
Interesting.
I saw James Brown at the Warfield.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say the Fairmont because he used to play the Venetian room.
Oh,
Remember
that
that
would
little
be
room in the
awesome.
Fairmont?
Didn't
Yeah.
we talk to Jeff Traeger about that?
Yeah. About
Yeah.
seeing James Brown in the Fairmont.
Was that more in his prime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The smack dab in his prime. I mean, when he would come around and really command like the nice places to play, you know, and that's where he did it.
Well,
But-
he also, like Tina Turner, had that period where it
Right.
wasn't happening. Like
Down
the
low.
late 70s, early 80s was not a good financial time for him. So he was playing
I mean,
nightclubs.
if you think
and-
about it, his comeback was coming to America.
yeah, which is what, 85, 84,
and
83 in
I
there?
would say
Eddie
a
brought him
solid
back.
8 to 10 years before that were not good to him.
No, in between, like, what's that, Payback and all that, and
Yeah.
then is Fallow.
Yeah.
Because he did have the Blues Brothers for a minute, brought him a little
That's
bit.
Yeah,
true, huh?
yeah,
that
too.
was like
It's true.
70s.
He had 100 comebacks. But yeah, the big one was Living in America because that was a hit.
When I woke up this morning,
Yeah.
I heard a disturbing sound.
Well, I think
love that
that
shit.
really coincided with a lot of hip hop groups sampling him at the
Yes.
same time. And
Absolutely.
so everybody was sort of
hip hop really brought him
rediscovering-
back, I think, and
James
George
Brown.
Clinton, like because every sample is them.
Yeah.
True.
And being in Rocky wasn't, Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Wasn't bad. Or
Well,
four,
that was
Rocky
living.
4.
That was what Living in America.
Yeah,
was.
right,
That
right.
That was
He made
that.
that.
Detroit City.
Yeah.
But you know, when I saw him at somebody's Christmas party.
What?
It was right in the middle of the .com bubble.
Yeah, yeah.
And people were throwing gobs of money at foosball
Yeah, yeah.
tables in the break room and shit. And some company that some friend of mine, actually, it was my friend Matthew Siselski, may he rest in peace. His girlfriend at the time, Carrie, worked at some company. She was writing code for some company that was
Yeah.
developing, something for the BlackBerry or some shit. And in doing that, they said, "Oh, let's get James Brown to play our Christmas party." And then they had like 200 employees at their place, and they realized, well, we just hired James Brown to play at the Warfield, and the Warfield sits 2,400. What are we going to do? And they said, invite everybody you know.
So it was a Christmas party
It
at
was
the
a
Warfield?
Christmas party.
I love the Warfield.
Yeah, it was terrific.
On Market Street.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's fantastic. You can get anyone to play those parties. People always think like, but literally you can get Elton
just have to-
John.
you just
You
have
can
to
get
pay.
any Madonna. I mean, like Beyonce, Janet Jackson. You can get them. You just need to give them $1 zillion,
Pete
and
tried
they
to
will
get
come to
Jerry
your party.
Reed.
I tried to get Jerry Reed to play my backyard party.
Jerry Reed.
Yeah, Jerry Reed.
When you're hot, you're hot. Jerry
Yeah,
Reed.
yeah. When you're hot, you're hot. Yeah,
my
exactly.
God.
Yeah. And his guy's like, Jerry Reed don't get out of bed for less than $10,000. And I'm like, all right, game over for me. But
Wow.
yeah, it would have been so awesome to have him out there and play the
You
banjo
mean
and tell his
Bama
jokes.
from the movie Gator?
Yeah. One of my favorite lyrics.
Smoking the Bandits.
He wants the band, instead of saying break it down, like he can do some work, he's like, quit out loud in me.
Yeah,
Like,
quit out loud.
all right. Jerry Reed.
My dad had this single. My dad loved Jerry Reed. And we had When You're Hot, You're Hot.
Yeah.
And what was it? Amos Moses, the one about the guy who gets ate by his father used to use him as alligator bait and stuff.
Yeah, and there's that one about How like when he gets divorced and he gets the shaft.
Yeah, that's right. She got the gold mine,
Yeah.
and I got the
Got
shaft.
the gold mine. That's right. I just heard that
He was
last
like Mr.
week.
Funny Country
and they
Songs, right?
had the marching band bass drum to like boom,
Yeah.
like to affect the jokes and stuff. I saw Bo Diddley at the Benicia State Theater down First Street, and it was fantastic. He had oral surgery that day, so he couldn't do much.
Oh, my.
He was packed full of cotton.
Yeah.
My mind went a different
He
direction.
still performed.
Yeah,
My
he
mind
was-
went a different direction.
he
I'm
was
like, Bo
good.
Diddley backstage had oral. But, you know, small town, whatever.
I saw him at the Hall in Burlingame in 1979 and at some crap club in Redwood City the same year with
Yeah.
Lady Bo, who died last year ago. And I remember drinking at the Hall in Burlingame, and I was underage, quite underage at the time, sitting in the Hall. The Hall was a crappy place in Burlingame that was literally a hall that held 100 people. And sitting there and saw Bo Diddley, this Friday, right? And I go to the bartender, how much you give Bo? $1,000? Right? I wanted to no. And the bartender goes, that's enough. And I was like,
Wow.
I don't know how much money Bo Diddley was getting. We snuck in because we knew where the back door was. It was next to the men's room.
Yeah.
And we parked in the back and we went in and watched Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
And I don't know if when you saw him, they pogoed he had surgery the day you saw him. But
Yeah.
they pogoed the last half hour of the show, the whole band.
Wow.
And the drummer wore a derby. That I'll never forget. A derby. Bo had his cowboy hat and the square guitar. And it was psychedelic. Like, Bo Diddley didn't just play, like, rock and roll. It was like, like he had this phase shifty, freaky thing attack. He'd made the guitar, was it?
Yeah,
The square
right.
one?
Yeah.
And at the end, they just, it was punk days. And, like,
Adapting.
I'll never forget that. I saw Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley, but I never saw Little Richard, and I always or Fats Domino, and those are the two I really wished I'd seen.
Yeah.
And they played a lot too.
He's still around.
But I mean,
They're
you're gonna,
all alive.
Yeah, but you're
Not
gonna
kidding.
Get that version of it.
Bo's
Hold on.
dead, but Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, and Jerry Lee Lewis are all
Still?
alive. Yes.
Is
Chuck Berry's
Fats
making an
Domino
album.
still playing?
No, he retired from playing, but he did play up to a couple years ago. He was playing Jazz Fest and stuff.
I know the Killer's always
Katrina
been
was the
crazy.
worst for him because
the
Ninth Ward's where he lived,
lost
and he had to be lifted by a helicopter out of his bloody house, and it's just tragic that we let that happen to Fats Domino.
Wow.
We were watching The Girl Can't Help It the other night. You ever see that movie from the 50s? And the movie's funny. It's Jane Mansfield and Tom Yule, but what's great about it is Little Richard, Gene Vincent, and Fats Domino are in it, filmed in Technicolor. So it's one chance to see them in a grade A Hollywood production, and Little Richard does Ready Teddy, and Fats Domino does, what's that one? Monday morning, my head is bad, but it's worth it for the time. That one, Sundays and whatever that one's called, Blue Monday. And it's at a dance. So the camera comes in, and there's all these teenagers dancing, and he's on stage singing. And he does the whole number. And then they've put a camera down here, and it shows they're all barefoot and stuff. It's the cutest number, and it's in bright Technicolor.
Wow.
But that's a good movie if you want to see a couple of old. It's called The Girl Can't Help It. Jane Mansfield.
Girl Can't
Right,
Help
and
It.
that's the theme song.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Little Richard sings it, and they show her walking down the street with her chest, and the guy's holding the milk ball, and the milk ball explodes, and the guy looks at her, his glasses crack, steam comes up, like everywhere she walks because her
course it
figure's
does.
ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. And yeah, they keep playing that. But Little Richard does a couple numbers in it, and then they showed Gene Vincent doing Bebop-A-Lula, and that's the best part of the movie is like an archive of how great they are.
Yeah.
But not crappy black and white. You can also go on YouTube, and there's a French television show that's a full Fats Domino concert from like '62, full orchestra with his producer Dave Bartholomew on trumpet, whatnot. And at the end of the show, New Orleans style, the band gets up and goes through the house.
Yes.
And it's all French people, right? And they're all it's 1962, so everybody's smoking and wearing black suits and shades, and they're going crazy. French people have never seen anything like this. It's New Orleans style, so they just get the fuck up. And
they're marching with their shit.
Oh, yeah. And he stays on stage, and it's worth watching. It's about an hour and a half long. It's in black and white, but it's fantastic.
Wow.
My wife found it on you ever go on Mark Meyer's site? It's called Jazz Wax, and he covers the waterfront. Not just, as you said, it ain't jazz. It's the blues, but he'll do a little blues, but also that kind of stuff. And there's all kinds of groovy videos he puts out there.
Wow.
So I love watching all the old cats.
Hey, did anybody ever read that Spy Magazine article about Chuck Berry.
Oh yeah, it was so vile. I don't even want to think about it. Oh my
My
God.
What were they talking about? What happened?
Oh, he's a coprophilia type guy and all scatological sex.
My
and,
man is freaky.
Yeah,
It was neat though how they set it up. I'm not going to encourage. Well, I guess I am tacitly encouraging everybody to go.
I
Find
prefer to
it.
think about his gifts.
Yes. Not the kind of gifts that you wrap with a pretty bow, because he could do that too. But there was this guy who went
while I
looking.
whip it out. He's one of them.
The author was a guy who went looking, and part of the article was about his going and looking for this material and meeting like seedy people in seedy motels in like somewhere off of Highway 152 between Modesto and Turlock. There's a little dusty motel, and I met a guy, and there was a tube TV, and I had to do the special knock, and he opened the door, and he said, "What I'm about to show you, no eyes have ever seen outside this room."
Oh, it's
And
nasty.
Oh, it's bad.
It's really
terrible.
bad.
It's terrible.
Jon and Pete.
Hey, everybody, if you like the Break It Down show,
I can dig it.
And of course you do.
of course you do, hit that subscribe button.
Jon and Pete.
It helps us out.
Hey, if you're going to like the show on Facebook or on Twitter, it helps us out if you share the show so people can learn about it. So liking it is great. Sharing is even better.
Let's do some spy stuff.
Yeah, just
Let's
sneak
get
in
all
there.
our friends' phones and have them subscribe to the Break It Down show. Do it. Subscribe. Listen to the show. If you love the show, tell 5 of your friends. Or if you hate the show, tell 5 of your friends.
Well, we have this discussion from time to time around the old house about musical artists, and you know, separating the artist from the person is difficult, especially in this post-Cosby Trump era. But Chuck Berry's an abuser of women, and the terrible things that are on those videos and everything. And obviously, Jerry Lee Lewis has killed a few women along the way, and
Married his cousin when she was like 11 or something.
13.
13.
And as he said on
13,
TV,
11.
she turned 14 the very next day, which is just the worst thing you could possibly. But
He really said that?
She was a grown ass woman.
yeah,
the
he's
next
a
day.
horrible human. It really, and you know, like if you were going to pick a white supremacist rock star, you might pick Jerry Lee Lewis, right? Like he's at that level of. I mean, not that he didn't play rock and roll and everything,
Right.
and we all know his most famous story with Chuck Berry, which is unrepeatable. But Van Morrison, who is a beautiful artist and has a wonderful voice and has a long, illustrious career, is a miserable, mean, you know, like he's horrible in
Crotchety old
interviews.
son of-
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
I had lunch once in London when we lived in London, and we went to this place in Portobello Road, and he was sitting there with his wife and daughter. And at the time, he was married to like Miss Ireland, and I'm telling you, this girl was 5'11",
Right.
brunette mane, and the daughter and her, were and he sat like this for an hour and a half and smoked and drank wine and didn't say a fucking word. And I've seen him in concert a bunch of times, and he's beautiful.
Amazing, yeah.
One time at the Wiltern, and a woman yells out during a break, "Van, we love you." And he goes, "Man, you don't even know me." Wow. And then Astral Weeks came out. You know, he did the redo of it about 3-4 years ago. And they did, you know, he didn't use the same band, which a bunch of them are alive because he's crotchety. So anyway, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do Astral Weeks as my concert. And of course, everybody wants to see it. They sent this guy out from Time Magazine, who's this square dude, and they sit him in a room with Van Morrison, and Van's got the shades on, and he's like this. And the guy's like, "Well, Mr. Morrison, about your, what do you think of the music of today?" And he goes, "I hate it, man. I hate that shit. I like Sonny Boy Williams," and you know, and he starts to go into this diatribe, and he can't be nice, you know, like, "Well, what about Astral Weeks?" "Oh, I don't want to talk about that, look, but that's what you're doing, you know." So our argument,
promote that new album. I don't care
right?
about that.
Our argument is always, are they channeling? You know, like Chuck Berry wrote some of the most no one tops him as a rock lyricist. Like his lyrics are the best, right?
Oh, still.
I mean, they're clever, they're funny, they're
Yeah.
sexy. What was it? Riding along in my calaboose, still trying to get her belt to loose.
Yeah.
Like that, you don't write a better line than that.
badass.
And what's the one Springsteen likes? A coffee-colored Cadillac, right?
Yeah.
But he's a horrible, mean, you know what I mean? And like Van Morrison writes, "I saw you writing me on, you wrote my name on the window pane." You know, like, and then you're just this horrible,
And a terrible human being.
you know, like,
Bitch, yeah.
so it's not
He's
always,
channeling a little Dylan or some shit.
right? Well, Dylan, you know, like Dylan doesn't seem like a lovable guy in any way.
Yeah.
but he wrote, what is it? It was back in another lifetime, one of toil and blood, when blackness was a virtue. Like, you're like, how do you think of that?
Yeah.
And then be this miserable fucker who takes drugs and sits outside and smokes and, glowers at the Bible, as he was once described.
Is he miserable?
I don't know that he's miserable. I think he is happy in what he does.
Okay.
But
He
if
just
you're
makes
in his
everybody
band-
else miserable.
I've heard stories from people who are in his band that say, like, he doesn't really like talk to you or anything, and there's no set list. He starts playing.
And you join in.
I just watched. I don't mean to interrupt you at all.
No, please.
I just watched the.
You'll never get a word in if you don't.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I like to listen sometimes. I just watched the documentary on Tom Petty on Netflix.
Oh, that
Yeah.
shit is
So
so
good.
good.
4 hours long.
4
So
hours.
good, though.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
But
Worth every minute.
Yeah, but I'm sure you saw it. That whole little moment where he went on tour with Dylan.
Yeah.
And they ended up making like 2 albums or some
Right.
shit
Yeah.
or whatever. And then they started the
Traveling
Traveling
Wilburys.
Wilburys. And it was just a really interesting moment there. But he talked about how there was no rehearsal, there was no real practice. They would just go.
Start playing. Yeah.
And he'd be like, no, let's move on to another song, like in the middle of a song. And shit. I'd be like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I don't think he sits down and, like, writes out a set list.
That's fun. That's fun though.
Well, they kept them on their tippy toes.
You know, I
the
appreciate
band has to, like,
the way. Yeah, they've got to lean forward.
Yeah,
You
they
gotta
do.
pay attention.
When you
That's how
see him play, the band stands like this, watching him
That's how
every
you
day.
make money.
Because he changes key
Does whatever the
Yes.
fuck he wants to
and
do.
lyrics in the middle of a song. He'll go into G minor. How about that?
And doesn't show up.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
I saw Prince at the Concord Pavilion, and he was doing at the time it was the Gold Experience or something.
Ooh,
And
I
he
like
was
that album.
doing a ballad,
Pussy Control,
Right,
and
yeah.
Endorphin Machine, all that.
Endorphin Machine. He was doing one of the ballads on the record, and he just wasn't feeling it. I mean, it sounded fine, but he just stopped after in the middle of the first
know.
verse,
They
and he
know.
went, "I'm not feeling this one. Let's move on." And just started playing something else. And I thought, okay, well, thank you.
He's like,
you
I
know
got
what?
900 of them. So.
We do, yeah. And hey, if you're not feeling that one, don't be forced to.
Right, that's
You're not
amazing.
obligated to do that.
He was
please.
so amazing. I saw him in Purple Rain, and that was they do. So now he sits down. He's put the guitar down for a moment. Now we're taking a piano break. He goes over to the piano. He plays "Free," right, like off what's that, the second album or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Be glad that you are free. Sing if you want to." So everybody sings right on the next one, and then he goes, "Thank you." And that made me laugh. So I'm like, really? We're not going to sing? You're Prince.
Yeah.
Sing if you want to. Now, and he took out the big, like squirty guitar that ejaculated and all that. Humped the floor for half an hour. Took a shower at one point in the show.
shower.
Got in a fake
Oh,
shower
yeah.
and
He did do that.
Purple Rain, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing show.
Oh, on the Love Sexy tour, when he had Sheila E. on the drums, they met, by the way, at the Circle Star.
Did they really?
Yeah, they went both to watch.
Well, she's
George
from the Bay Area,
Benson.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they went to see George Benson, and he knew of her, and she, of course, had heard of this guy who had just got signed to Warner Brothers. So they were in there. Hell, they might have been 19 at the time, but they met backstage at the Circle Star. Yeah.
I did not know that. Her, I've got to meet a couple times, and I love her.
Yeah.
She still looks beautiful. Doesn't
She's
she's
still
so hot.
absolutely stunning.
I did about 10 years ago. I did the $10,000 pyramid, or whatever it was called, 25,000. When Donny Osmond
However
hosted
much it was at the time.
and you know how there are two people and then the two contestants, and the other person was Sheila E. And I was like,
Really?
I was vibrating with
Yeah.
excitement.
I mean,
And
everybody
she couldn't
loves
give a
Sheila
clue.
E., but
she
you're
couldn't give a
from
clue to
San
save her
Carlos.
life.
We still
totally
love you, Sheila.
upstaged
We
her.
love
Oh no, but like when she used to kick the hi hat,
Yeah.
she played standing up and
Yeah.
all that. Unbelievable.
Yeah, she's unbelievable still.
She's amazing.
They
Her father was from Oakland, was he?
yeah.
Pete?
He's still around.
Yeah.
She's
from the Bay.
in fact
Yeah,
this
she's there at the
weekend
Bay.
playing Yoshi's on Jack London Square.
Wow.
The Love Sexy tour though, she went off into her solo, and somebody threw him a basketball, and then a basketball hoop went up, and he pretty much went all the way around the perimeter and just drained 3-pointers while she was playing her solo.
Wow. That's
We all just
hilarious.
went, look at his little ass.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And I'm not kidding. He didn't miss. He
Yeah.
just drained him. He went all the way around the horn.
in his high heels.
Yeah. Just like in, just like in,
Yeah,
the,
'cause he
just
was.
like in the Chappelle show, in full regalia.
Oh yeah,
Charlie
no, he
Murphy
never went
wasn't
in.
lying.
I know the woman who's married, a guy who's married to Janie Child, who did Don't Want to Fall in Love, the Canadian songwriter. Her husband's named Cat, and he works with Wayne Brady, right? And John Mangum, and I met him through them. And I've worked with Cap, and he was in Prince's band too. And he said they'd get woke like a phone call. Prince wants to go shopping. Everybody, full hair and makeup. So you had to
It'd
go
be
down
1:30 in the morning and
and
shit.
Yeah, you fucking okay. Like
I
everybody
need my
get
entourage if I
hair,
go shopping.
hair did, costumes on. Like he didn't go out like
Half
you or
step
I
it.
would go out
In
in
some
like
sweatpants.
cutoffs. Yeah, like he didn't do that. Like he went out in full. And then he talked about having him. They get back after a gig, and Prince goes, "I'll race you." They're at like some hotel that's got a big lawn, and he goes, "Prince is in his stage costume. He's wearing 6-inch heels."
And he wants a race.
And he goes, "I had to race him across the lawn." And then another friend told me a story about
God bless him. That's why his hips were fucked
playing
up.
hoop with him in Minneapolis at the studio,
Yeah.
and that he played hoop in his heels,
Yep.
but that he was outstanding athlete.
Yeah, he could play.
Yeah. Well, what was that famous one? Is it Eddie Murphy's crew?
It's,
There's a famous story.
Chappelle.
It's Chappelle's
Yeah,
crew?
yeah.
They come in to play him, and
Char-
they're
it
like,
was
"Oh,
Charlie
we're going to
Murphy.
beat his ass."
Oh, it's Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy. It was Charlie
Right.
Murphy.
Charlie crazy.
Yeah.
We're going to beat his ass, and they're like, "Oh no, oh no!" They get in there, and Prince is
And then he
all
would-
that. Yeah.
And then he would talk shit too.
I'll
Be
take
like,
you right to the
"Game," and
bucket.
fill them all
Yeah. Taking you to the bucket. Like,
They played
wow.
blouses
Prince
versus
got a crossover.
skins.
His little 4 foot.
And this big, 5'4". My favorite
He's
thing.
squirrely. He'll get past you.
Yeah. What was it, Lisa, who said? My favorite thing about him, he was like a fancy lesbian. No, I saw him a couple times. I saw him in the Love Sexy, but not on the tour. It was one of those Oakland, and he had done Love Sexy at like the Coliseum.
yeah, he did
And then
Coliseum.
it was a theater in San Francisco, like the Warfield or something. Like a one.
saw after show.
Yeah, 1 in the morning gig.
Oh, yeah.
Brought the whole band over. Kat was in the band then, and Sheila E. whatnot.
Just barely, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. The thing that he used to do is after his big arena show, he would go to some place in town, and if you were holding $100, you could get in, and it would be some place like Ruby Sky or the Warfield or
right.
some little tiny place.
Some intimate place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you had $100, right then, right there, you could drop it on a ticket and get in right then.
Yeah.
And then he might do another one at 3:30
Oh, yeah.
somewhere else at a smaller joint.
That was what's so weird. I mean, I know we didn't know all about his painkillers and how hurt he was, but he was still doing those gigs up till the end.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 3 in the morning gigs,
Yep.
still doing them. And he didn't just do like 20 minutes. He did like 2.5 hours.
He
you
did
know.
2.5 hours.
You were exhausted at the end of the gig.
You can
like,
imagine how he felt.
Right. You know, like I thought he was always slim
Yeah.
and athletic, but his hips must have just been
Oh, they were
broken.
demolished.
Broken.
Now, I have a friend, Josh Luck, who was in the New Power Generation. It was like the fan club, but it was the super in, like he would go to Minneapolis for Prince's birthday and shit.
Wow.
But one year, he was when Prince had his residency at the Rio in Las Vegas.
Which I wished I went to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, Josh went to it for his birthday, celebrated it, got the room package or whatever. And when he checked in, he went into his room and there was the flashing, the phone flashing. When he got there was a voice message, and it was somebody saying, "Hey, Josh, this is so-and-so from the New Power Generation. We understand that you're here for your birthday, and Prince would like to see you at 1:30. Come down to the auditorium." It had some very specific instructions on where to go and what to do, and he did it. And he walked in, and they were doing sound check at 1:30 in the afternoon. And there was the band and the crew and about 30 people. And the 30 people got seated right up front. Wow. And they got to listen to the sound check. Oh my God. Then they had lunch with the crew. They brought in like a buffet, so they'd have lunch with the crew. And while they would serve themselves. And then while they sat down and ate, Prince came back out and the band got up and said, "Okay, everybody, while you're eating your lunch, I'm going to take some requests." And he took requests
fucking-
for an
Oh my
hour and a
God.
half.
Are you kidding
Oh
me?
my
An hour and a half? That's
Yeah.
a fucking meeting right
An
there.
hour and a
Jesus
half.
Christ.
That's giving back.
Yeah.
He did, man. Well, I remember one of his quotes. He said, "Someone went, do you write music?" And he went, "I am music." But I really feel like he was that kind of person. Like
I do
he just
too.
wanted to play and
He
play and play and
truly
play and
was
play and play and
channeling.
play. Yeah. Some people, it's a job, and they
Yeah.
act like it's a hassle. But he never acted that way. He just, you never got cheated. The show was so long, you were going to die of thirst at the end.
That's true. You never got cheated.
No, he didn't
And-
cheat you.
And you better do your homework because he's never meant to cause you it. Sing it.
Yeah.
You
had to sing it.
I'm not going to hit the high note. You hit it.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. No, you had
There
to
was
work.
42,000
Yeah, you
people.
had to work.
Motherfucker, you sing.
Exactly.
Wow.
Here's how we bring this full circle. Greg Proops, I feel like you're channeling. To do 300 episodes of the smartest man in the fucking world with a microphone in front of you and just go.
That's hard.
You know, I was talking about
We
when
at least have somebody to bounce off.
Pete and I were prepping on our way here. A lot of times we'll go, okay, let's talk about, so-and-so, and they did this and just kind of put things sequentially so we have a framework for what we're going to talk about. We did none of that.
It never ends up working like that.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
But we
laid
put it
plans.
there. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You put it there, and then whatever. We never even got there. We said, okay, Greg Proops. And then we just went, Jesus Christ, man, we're going to have to try and shut that guy up because he's just going to go crazy.
Unsuccessful.
I mean, how many fucking things have you done? There's not even okay, whose line is it anyway? That's the easy one here for the folks in America or for the folks in England. Mm-hmm. But you've done so much other shit. I mean, from, voicing animation and
you should be voicing it. You do a lot of really good voices.
I know. You're so kind.
What are you channeling, man? What are you channeling?
I just try to. I like to play, and I don't.
Grown ass kid.
You were talking about Tom Petty, I remember when he made that documentary, he was very grumpy. An interview I read with him, and he went, "Oh yeah, they shot every show on a tour because it was this elaborate thing." And he goes, "But when you tour, at the end of it, what have you done? Just a bunch of great shows." And I was like, "But that's the point." If you're a troubadour like Bob Dylan, who plays all the time, or Prince, who played all the time, your job is to play. So I feel like when you say, are you channeling, I'm not trying to be funnier than anyone else, but I'm going to play all the time because sitting at home is not how
what you do.
Gets off. Yeah. And you're not communicating with anyone when you're at home. If I go out and play live and I go around the world and I go here and do gigs and stuff, then I know I'm connecting with people. Sure. And so that's sort of what I think I don't really have a philosophy other than I like to get high, but that's my philosophy.
Anything about
Please.
comedy? Do you mind?
Come on.
Let me just ask you, just as
We're in
somebody
Hill's house, by
who
the way.
we've known, you've been out, done every single kind of comedy, stand-up in particular, over the years. What have you seen that's changed over the years? Because the kids today don't realize the hustle that you guys have established for the kids today. I call them kids because the motherfuckers are kids. Yeah.
They are kids.
Yeah. You know what I mean? If you were starting over today, because it's different, it's easier, it's faster to get in. You know what I mean?
While we're calling everybody kids, and I don't want to cut you off, but
fine.
this motherfucker looks spectacular.
Now you guys, you're gonna make me late because I'm gonna stay for more flattery.
I forgot
You're gonna make
gotta
me
run.
stay for more flattery. Thank you.
Pretty Ricky's what they call
I
it.
don't know what I'd do now if I started. I started playing live in clubs, and that was the only way then.
Yeah.
This was in the late 70s, early 80s. And the early 80s, the only way you got a gig was you went to open mics every single night. And so when I started in San Francisco then, and it was Warren Thomas, Paula Poundstone, Bobby Slayton. They were geniuses. Michael Pritchard, Will Durst. Jake Johansson started like a year after me. And I saw him do all open mics, watched him develop into the great comic that when he first started, he didn't get no laughs. And then it took a couple years, and then he figured out how his thing worked,
found his
you know?
voice, yeah.
And, like you see Jake, like Jake's indelible. You know how Jake works. But I go back with him so long that we saw each other when we weren't funny. And I wouldn't know now whether I would start on YouTube like Bo Burnham or whether I'd write. You know what I mean? Like there was no option when I started. The only option was get up every night.
Is there
5 nights?
Is
a week.
that better? Was that better for you?
It was better for me, but it also that's the old-fashioned part of like these all the musicians we're talking about. Prince and I were the same age, right? Around the same age, and
17, 18.
no, I mean born at the same time, and I think he felt the same way. Like from the time he was a kid, he was out gigging.
Yeah, he was.
You know what I mean? And I don't think there was another way around it. He didn't sit at his house and go like, "I'm going to make a thing," and he went, "No, I'm going to play gigs until I'm great." The way James Brown did, the way Ray Charles did, the way anybody good did. So I don't know another way, but I know there's a million other ways now. The biggest change is everything comes over the telephone now. That's liberated us. I had a manager say to me a couple of years ago, we've taken back the means of production. I don't need a TV show to make me famous. I was lucky enough to be on one when TV was really popular.
Yeah.
TV was popular in the 90s, and it's not quite as popular now, but everything that comes over your phone is popular. And the podcast allows all of us to go directly to the people who want it, which we never had that opportunity before. However many downloads you get on your show, I guarantee you is more than will fit in a club. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can go play a
Wow.
club, and there
That's a
might be
really good
200 people in the club, maybe 300. I could even play a theater with the Who's Line guys, and there's 1,500 people. But if I do a podcast, it's 60,000 people or 100,000 people, and the reach of that, the
it's
reach of
powerful.
that. Now, it doesn't financially remunerate the same way that other things
That
have.
200 people in the club. used to.
Right, but so one thing feeds the other, and I think that's the biggest, most important, most exciting change is the immediacy of comedy. We used to have to wait. Oh my God, Carlin's going to be on Midnight Special,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or Pryor's going to be on the Tonight Show, and you like fucking wait, and you couldn't tape it and nothing, and you know, it was
Yeah.
like an event.
I got to stay up.
Or I'm going to go see Live at the Sunset Strip, but I got to go to the movie theater
Yeah.
and see it 3 times because I can't do it another
And
way.
you got to go to the movie theater with the sticky floor, by the way. I saw that at the Empress.
Right?
That place
Right?
wasn't right. So, yeah.
That wasn't
Juju
even
bees.
VHS, was it? That wasn't
Yeah,
Oh,
even
no.
VHS, yeah.
I was
No.
going to ask too about like Alex Bennett, for at least from our era, was
man,
great
you
for you
just-
guys.
So instrumental in my career.
yeah, and there's not. I mean, yes, comics go on morning shows, but it's a different.
It wasn't
thing.
like Alex
It's
Bennett on the
packaged.
Quick.
Yeah, you guys. Would
I
come
still
on.
speak to Alex. I did his show this year. He's got
His
an
podcast.
internet show
Yeah,
now.
right,
He's
yeah.
in New York City back again, and I told him that I loved him. When I wrote a book, I sent it to him with a big florid thank you, and I think he knows how much he meant to me because I was able to go on his show every week for
Right.
weeks at a time. And then sometimes when you go on vacation, they'd ask me to host. So if you hosted and you were doing a show that week, you were sold out.
Yeah.
You were sold out. It was
There were a
so
lot more comedy
immediate.
clubs
Yeah.
in the Bay Area then too.
Well, this is before telephones. People don't remember, but the radio was so important in the Bay Area. And,
Yeah.
and Alex Bennett show, Bob Rubin, me, Warren Thomas, Tom
Yeah.
Kenny,
Keep going. There's
Bobby
all of them.
Slayton.
Tree,
Yeah,
all
the
of
whole,
them.
Tree.
everybody
Yeah.
you name.
I mean, 1 million people. And so he really, really was instrumental in making comedy popular. And he had really decent taste in comedy. He didn't actually like shitty comics. So the comics tended to be rather intelligent and had something to say. He didn't like Hackosaurus. You know, there was never like jugglers or, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It wasn't that kind of comedy.
Yeah.
And he would put on shows and he would pay good money.
He also
I
had a
remember
studio
getting like
audience. He could come in.
$1,000 to do a show in like 1980 something to do a 15-minute set, which was like,
That's
you know,
huge.
Well,
That's
I mean,
rent.
he didn't have to.
of
He
money,
could have
yeah.
given us $250. We'd have done it, but it was like, no, it's at the Great American Music Hall or the Masonic or whatever,
yeah.
and like so everybody got good money, and you just came out and did a set, and everybody knew you from me. It was kind of like Alan Freed, right? Like that, the rock and roll show. Like I'm gonna put
Yeah.
on this show and put on 7-8 comics.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pay everybody okay, and
Top of the pops.
That's right.
right, right. And
Yeah.
so you don't. It's not one person all night. It's 7. You know. So I think you're right. He was people who remember, and of course there's enough old of us to.
Yeah.
Someone the other night was like, "Hey, I used to go see you in San Francisco in the old days," and it's
Yeah.
like Alex Bennett, and they always bring up Alex Bennett because
Yeah.
he.
Well,
was
back
cool.
then, remember when we would go to see our
Okay,
very
now-
first comedy shows? You had to look and go, if I heard any of these guys on Bennett, and if you hadn't, it was like sketchy.
Right.
You know, I don't know if I want any of that.
It was an
bill.
endorsement. It really was. The first time I went on, he hated me. He didn't have me back on for like 6 months. Then I went on, and I was like a little less obstreperous, and he got to know me. And then, like I said, they asked me, and this is so stupid, I don't even know why I'm telling you, but when he quit, they asked me to take over his show. And I said no, because Johnny Steele took it over, as you recall. And of course, he was fired like 6 months later, on air, like during a break. Like,
No shit.
we're going to commercial, and then Johnny, come here. The program director wants to talk to you. And when we came back
And
from
you won't be
commercial,
coming
we
back.
weren't there no more. And I said, I would take the gig, and I really appreciate you offering it to me. And it was a load of money. One, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. every day. And 2, you're going to change formats and go country in 6 months. And that's nothing to do with me. I mean, they didn't, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
in your mind, you think,
That's
you
a
don't,
trap.
You don't follow Alex Bennett and then be Alex Bennett.
Yeah.
You couldn't, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
And I thought, maybe it would have been good for me. I don't know. But at the time, I remember thinking, radio business is run by giant corporations, and they're going to come in and change. And it's not you It's just like, oh, your numbers weren't his. And it's like, well, nobody's numbers were his. He was
Alex Bennett.
He was getting huge numbers.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, you could say he made me famous.
Right. Well, he'd made Johnny famous, And Johnny was he's a great comedian, and he's really quick. And it's like, you're just going to get fired. Radio is about being fired.
Wow.
Anyone who can survive 20 years in the same place in radio is a genius. I mean, look at Howard Stern. When the time came, he split.
Yeah.
And he had
the
the
getting
biggest
was good.
radio network in the world.
Leave on a high note.
Well, Adam Carolla, when it all went down, he just switched over.
Yeah.
And went, I'm building a studio,
Yep.
and I'm going on the internet.
Thank goodness.
Technology.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right, I have to go.
Yes, we are respectful of your time.
You're
Speaking
beautiful.
of letting you off on a high note, thank you, Greg Proops. We're
Thank you, man.
enormous fans and even bigger now.
I could have stayed for 2 hours and done this, but I really do have to go. I'm sorry. I didn't have more time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Can we
Thank
do
you,
it
John.
again another time?
Yes,
'Cause I
please.
know
Thank you,
when
John.
our-
Thank you, Pete. Thank you,
when we-
Hilliard.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem.
thanks.
Of course.